All right. You want me to turn off my video and audio first?
Oh, no, sir. Hi, a very warm welcome to all of you, and we are back this Saturday. And I must tell you, I was super excited for this talk, and this is especially because first time ever in so many months we have not one but we have three speakers. And I must tell you, I'm a little nervous as well because all three speakers are very potent. They have they have a very potent story and a message to give to all of us. Like, you know, the title also says three people, different stories, but one purpose that connects all of them. So let me welcome to you Jaya Jayaram, and she works with the Mohan Foundation. I will not give out too many details because I want her to tell us about herself more later. And she works as a project manager there. She has an engineering background and also is a postgraduate in management, is it?
Yeah, finance.
Finance, yes. And we also have Rishi Ganguly with us. He's a tech expert and, of course, has a business that works into social media and designing. He is a recipient of heart transplant, and he will also tell us more about his story and about why are we here today. We also have another speaker. I think she just dropped off, right? So, yeah, there she is. And that was the entry. So we have Lalita Raghuram with us. And thank you so much for being there. She is the country director for Mohan Foundation. And I will not again go into too many details because I want her to talk about it and talk about her journey as well. So, welcome you all to the platform, and I am so elated. We are all here today discussing about a subject which probably is not so very comfortable in a lot of Indian homes and probably Western homes as well. So, welcome the audiences and welcome to all those people who will watch our repost later on. And I am Dr. Hema Majaj. If you're new, you're on Lose Your Blues and you're watching the channel here with all of us. So, Lalita, I want to welcome you to open the session first because, of course, you've been quite a motivation. Can tell our audiences about your story and your journey.
Well, thank you so much, Hema, for inviting me. And it's an honor and an absolute pleasure to be with all of you. I work as the country head for Mohan Foundation. You know, a lot of them keep asking me if it's my husband's name or my son's name. Mohan is an acronym for Multi-Organ Harvesting Aid Network. We are a non-profit organization, a registered charitable trust. We started our work way back in 1997, 23 years ago in Chennai. And today we have offices not only in Chennai, but in Hyderabad. I'm based in Hyderabad. We have offices in Bengaluru, Delhi, Nagpur, Chandigarh, Mumbai, and Jaipur. And in Imphal also, we have a small office. So we have grown to this extent during the last 23 years. And our primary objective is to ensure that patients that are suffering with end-stage organ failure are given the gift of life through a life-saving organ. So we work to promote deceased organ donation. So what is deceased organ donation? Donation of organs after we are dead and gone. So that is our work. And we are the oldest and the largest organization in the country, Hema.
So nice to hear that, Lalita. And also,
Thank
before we go on to your story, you know, because a lot of people may have that question that how did you choose this kind of a profession and what led you to reaching where you are right now?
Yeah. So, you know, I have a background in eye care and eye banking. I was the first employee of LV Prasad Eye Institute in Hyderabad. And then I moved to iBank Association of India as its executive director. And just 1 minute with Wi-Fi. So just one.
And guys, I mean, if I look distracted sometimes in the beginning, please don't think I'm not interested. It's just I have to cross post the links to a lot of other groups as well. So thanks for
Yes,
bearing with
yes,
me.
I know.
Yes,
So
Lalita.
I have a background in eye care and eye banking, as I mentioned. So between 1993 and 2001, I worked for the Eye Bank Association of India promoting eye donation. Eye donation was not very well known. And in Hyderabad, we got one eye donation in one full year. One eye donor in 1989. There we grew to now having more than 5,000 eyes in a year. So eye donation was at its infancy in our country at that time. So we started promoting eye donation from the Eye Bank Association of India. There are more than 300 eye banks in the country. So people needed to know that it's a very simple thing. Eyes can be donated within 6 hours after death. Maximum you could go up to 10 hours also. Removal of eyes does not take more than 15 minutes. And in fact, you know, people, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions, but it's a very, very simple procedure. And now, of course, we have grown to a stage where people, the family themselves call us and say, we would like to donate our father's eyes or mother's eyes who's no more. So please tell us what the procedure is. So we coordinate everything. So until 2001, I was in Eye Bank Association of India, and I started the Hyderabad office of Mohan Foundation in November 2001. So it's been 19 years in Mohan Foundation for me. So all that I learned, all the experience I gained in eye banking, we started implementing in organ donation. Because you see, Hema, the people that you are talking is the same. The mindset of people is the same, and organ donation is there in its infancy at this
Lalita,
point
your
of
voice
time.
is cracking actually.
Is it better now? Is it better?
Yeah, it is better.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it better?
Yeah, it's better. It's still,
Okay.
I think there's a little hang for me.
Because when I just started the Wi-Fi, so I'm actually
Okay.
using the data
That will
from
take,
my phone.
probably you can close your video and then talk, and maybe once your Wi-Fi stabilizes, you can switch on the video again.
Take it. So is it better now?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so all that we learned in iBanking, we implemented in organ donation. People's mindset is the same. People want to donate organs, but they don't know the what, where, when, and how about organ donation. In fact, they didn't know why anyone should make an organ donation. So that's been my journey in eye care, eye banking, and organ donation at this point of time.
So thank you so much for that. And Lalita, I want to understand, why is organ donation important?
Yeah, due to lifestyle changes and the incidence of diabetes and hypertension being on the rise, hypertension and diabetes are the mother of all diseases. So as a result of this, a lot of them end up with organ failure. When somebody has a diabetes or hypertension, the first organ that is affected is eyes. And then it goes to kidneys, and it also affects the skin, it also affects the neurological system of the body. So when it affects the organ, first organ is kidney. So a lot of them in our country are affected.
Oh, I think we lost her. I think she has a network issue. Hello.
Am I audible?
Yeah, but it's cracking a lot.
Okay, let's you go ahead with that. Then I will.
I don't think we hear you.
Hema, I think she's asking you to go ahead with other speakers and
Oh,
she'll
okay.
try and join back.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would take this time till probably Lalita gets back, to invite Jaya, and Jaya has a unique story to tell us. So Jaya, how did you end up getting associated with Mohan Foundation? Why don't you tell us about yourself and your story?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hema, for having me here. It's such a pleasure. So, well, like as you introduced, I have an engineering degree and I've done my post graduation in finance. At that point in time, if someone would have asked me if I would be doing this work at any point in time in future, I would have surely not even thought about something like that. But something happened. I got detected with end stage renal failure, kidney disease, chronic kidney disease in the year 2009. Actually, I started getting symptoms in 2008, like weight loss, and there were no obvious symptoms like either swelling or, the typical symptoms. None of them were present. There was weight loss, and there were very disconnected symptoms, and no one would have imagined or connected it with kidney disease. But eventually, when I went in for a complete checkup in 2009, that's when it got confirmed that yes, I have kidney failure, and creatinine, which should be less than 1, was found elevated at 3.5. So then started the chakkar of all nephrologists. I'd never heard, I'd never known what a nephrologist is, and that's the first time I came to know that a nephrologist is basically a kidney specialist. Usse pehle wo bhi nahi pata tha. But yeah, so to, well, going ahead, the creatinine just kept rising, even though I was a very good student or whatever, acha bacha types, all the fluid restrictions, all the diet restrictions, everything I followed. I took all the medication. And first of all, it was a very big shock. We were in denial. The first question that I used to think is, why me? Because I had led a very, very, very ordinary life. There was no such, even indication of any such problem earlier. There was no illness or there was no medication that I was on. So it really still beats me at times, but then I've stopped thinking about it. So not just me, my entire family was in a big shock when it got confirmed that it's chronic, because we were hoping in a way that it's something which is curable and can be treated and can be reversed. But when the doctors eventually confirmed that no, it's not treatable, the damage has been happening over years, and your kidneys, they're functioning less than 10%. So at that point in time, it was not easy. The creatinine just kept rising, and when it crossed 6, that's when the doctors and nephrologists said that, Jaya, you'll have to start dialysis. And dialysis, obviously my entire world came crashing down. But and I never thought that at the age of 33 I would have to take such decisions about dialysis and all of those. But uh, well, we just so I kept avoiding dialysis, and maybe it was a very foolish thing to do. It was quite a foolish thing to do when I look back. But it's the emotional thing. It is, when you're going through trauma, you don't think rationally. And eventually I had a transplant. It was a tough period that I was going through. My family members couldn't bear to see me go through this, all of this tough situation. At that point in time, we sort of looked up what are the options, what are the alternatives that will help me get out of this messy situation in life, because there was no clarity at all. It's very gray, there was no clarity ki aage kya hoga. Will I be able to play a role in my daughter's life? She was barely 4.5, 5 at that time. Will I be able to watch her grow? Will I be there to, be a part of her life? All these were very big question marks. And so transplant, we read up, is an option, and that's when I got it. I'm very lucky. My entire family stood by me, and my mom donated one of her kidneys. But it was not easy, this decision also, to take mom's kidney and go ahead with it. There was a lot of reservations on my part, because I didn't want my loved one to go through something so huge. And, if something were to happen to her, I probably could never forgive myself for the rest of my life. And I didn't think it was worth it at that point in time. But yes, there were certain events and incidences by which we could meet other families who went through such similar things. And that gave me a lot of confidence. My mom donated one of her kidneys to me. This was in 2010, March of 2010. I joined work, and it was business as usual. But then I wanted to do something beyond that. And I had the opportunity, therefore, in 2016 to change my careers. And that's when I reached out to Mohan Foundation on a Facebook Messenger. Can you believe it? But it had to happen. Lalita was the one who took my message, and we sort of got connected. And then just say, love happened. The chemistry worked out. We went ahead, and I'm so happy that I'm doing what I'm doing. Trust me, it gives me a lot of pleasure. You're muted.
I want to say congratulations because it is a very brave thing to do. You said it in one breath, but I can understand the complexity of the situation and what thoughts must have gone through and what family must have gone through while doing this. Jaya, this brings me to one question specific to you, and then probably we move to Rishi for an introduction. Now, like you said, the first thought always is whether you're going to be taking uh, involving your family for a transplant or taking it from somebody else. You have to wait for either somebody to die, or you are worried about somebody else not having a great life. I want to know, and probably a lot of my viewers will have that question also, that when your mother donated one kidney, didn't that whole feeling of whether she'll be able to live her life as healthy as she is, or is that a myth? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, Hema, it was certainly not an easy decision for me personally. Though, yes, it did mean that this is a gateway for me to get out of that messy situation that I was in. And, it was no fault of mine that I was in that situation. But the fact of the matter is that when my mother, of course, she kept pushing me, she kept saying, don't worry, I'm with you. Like I told you, I'm blessed, I'm lucky. My entire family stood by me. All of them volunteered to donate their kidney. And so, we really were not in that situation where we had to think much about there is no option over here, so where else karke. But um, and the foremost thing in their minds was they couldn't bear to watch me suffer. But likewise, I was going through a dilemma myself as to how can I live with this consequences if something were to happen to my mom. But having said that, yeah, we did discuss quite a bit. We approached the doctors, we took a calculated decision, in the sense that we did meet in other families who had been through similar situation. We did meet other living donors, in which, looking at them, it was a huge confidence giving measure when, so like they say, even though you read it, but किसी को आंखों देखी देखने में बहुत confidence आता है. So it did make a lot of difference. But there is still a risk. It is a major surgery, even though all the leading hospitals, the kidney transplant is very well understood. The teams are extremely good in all the leading hospitals, and so it's not a major thing, it's not a major risk as it used to be. But nevertheless, it's a major surgery, and there's a loved one who has to go under the knife for you. So it's definitely not easy. And there are so many of them who, who have a loved one who is willing to donate, but they are, ya to it doesn't match, or the donor is actually, a living donor is not healthy enough to donate. So, and you can't even judge those people for not wanting to donate, even if there is a member in the family who can but is not wanting to. You can't. These are extremely difficult situations for the families. And when you look at the numbers in rest of the countries, developed countries, you see that more than 90 to 95% of the transplants happen through deceased donors. Unfortunately, in India, it's the other way around. You have more than 90% of the transplants happening through living donors, and about 5 to 10% of it happening through deceased donors. So if only each and every person were to go ahead and donate their organs after they are no more, we wouldn't have the need at all for a living donor to even think, jaise kisi ne this, if someone were to register today, next day they get offered an organ, that's such an ideal thing. It's a dream come true for me personally. But that is something that we would all, that's what Mohan Foundation is also working for, that, the wait should not be so prolonged. People should not have to die while waiting to receive an organ. So ideally, yes, there is a risk, but having said that, transplants are very well understood subjects, and therefore the hospitals manage it very well. But it's a very easy thing for me to say. Only the families know what difficult times they go through. And ideally, if you have a cadaveric donor, or if it were easy, if it were easily available for people to just get on the waiting list and get an organ, then you don't have to subject a loved one in the family through the difficult process of a major surgery and then recuperation. But there are living donors like my mother who are doing very well, touch wood. Even living donors in liver, for the ones who donate part of the liver to their loved one. So these are all very well understood. The risks have been minimized by the medical management, and therefore the quality of life is quite good even after donating a part of the liver or one of the kidneys. They get to lead extremely normal lives thereafter. But having said that, I will say that if cadaveric donations were, if the gap between the need and availability were not huge, then you really don't have to go to living donors at all.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. So now one thing I realize is in India, the ratio for donation is reversed. The cadaveric donation is far less as compared to living donors. So hopefully, through such awareness campaigns, we are able to convince, or for that matter, inform people about what they, why is it so important. And so let me come to Rishi, because he has a very interesting story as well. He's a total inspiration. I know him a little more because I had chat with him, and he's totally a lively person. I still remember when we first connected. He told me that he's a Gujarati, Bengali, plus what? Rishi, you want to tell them yourself? You want to introduce yourself?
Malayali. I'm Keralite, 33% Keralite.
Yeah. So, and I was surprised. I was like, okay, how are you a Keralite plus a Gujarati and plus, what I'm
Monk.
forgetting. Yeah.
Bengali.
So you want to tell them about it? Yeah, I think you said the best. Why do you call yourself a secular
So-
person?
No. I mean, I use that as a conversation starter, because you can say you're either one community because both mom and dad are from that community, or you can say you're part of two communities because your mom and dad are two different communities. But to say that I'm 33 split across three different communities, it's a conversation starter. So I just like to have interesting conversation, and then they'll say, how come? And then I'll talk to them about the heart run, because I really want people to I mean, even this, what, you went through a heart transplant? Yeah, man, it was, and I want people to know that people should know about organ donation, and I'm alive thanks to organ donation, and I'm so happy and grateful and thankful. So I do it with an agenda. I do it because I hope that the conversation will come around, and then we at least bring awareness into organ donation, and then I'll connect them and tell them what they can and what they should do. Go make your will, talk to your kids, talk to your wife, talk to your spouse, whatever. Like because I've written my will and I've told my brother, you got to do this, right? All my organs go, everything can be used. You have to execute this, because I think these are uncomfortable conversations. People don't want to talk about death. Like shubh shubh bolo, aisa kya baat kar rahe hain? And I say, no, let's talk about it, because hey, when I'm dead, I'm not available to take a call. I'm not here to tell you guys what to do. I'm telling you now. Let's discuss it right now. When I was telling my son also about it, he was like, Dad, why we have to talk about it? I said, no, we have to, because I don't want you to come in front of Chachu and tell him, no, 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 don't take the organs of Dad. It shouldn't be like that. They should be crystal clear that this is my decision. I mean, each one takes their own decision. I'm making my decision. It's there in the will. My brother is the executor of the will. He'll know exactly what to do. And you don't have to worry about any cremation. I mean, I think still there's a cremation process. They can do whatever after the organs are salvaged. So I think I like to do it as a conversation starter to get the conversation going. And that's why when people like you say, Rishi, can you come on a talk? I'm like, yes, absolutely. I will talk about this. I will, the next person that calls you to the Rishi, can you talk about? Of course, I'm going to come and talk about it. More people should know. And that's why I was so happy to learn from Jaya and Lalita about so many more things that I'm still catching up. I'm just like 1.5 years back, I got my new heart from a wonderful person. And I still have a lot to learn about what should one do and what should one not do. So, I don't know if I'm speaking more than what I should at this point. Yeah.
So, Rishi, one thing I'm sure we all want to know is how was your condition before the transplant and post the transplant? How was that impacted, your life in terms of your general health condition?
Yeah, so I had a condition called dilated cardiomyopathy, which is the heart starts, it becomes very dilated, it becomes very large, and therefore unable to pump enough blood in the body. And a certain percentage of men in India will go through it. There's some genetic basis. There's a certain amount of people will go through. And I was on medication to begin with. So I was diagnosed in 2010. And then around 2015, I had to undergo a blood clotting thrombolysis process, which was to remove the clots. And my condition was just going from bad to worse. In 2018, I got a huge fatigue attack. I was totally exhausted, couldn't keep my head straight. I was just only sleeping, lying down. I just was in a horrible state. And I wanted to die. I wanted to commit suicide. When I heard the price of the operation, I said, oh God, who's going to pay for this? I don't want my dad to pay for this. And all kinds of, we go through this whole confusion of what the heck is, it's just better to die. A lot of people ask me, are you afraid of dying? I said, no, I'm not afraid of dying. Dying is, once you're dead, it's over. The deal's done, right? What I was very, very afraid or scared about was suffering and pain. And I didn't want to be in suffering and pain. And I was on the list. And then I backed out last minute and I got off the list because I didn't want to go through this heart surgery process. I was trying all kinds of alternative healing options and stuff like that, but I didn't want to do surgery. And the doctor said, oh, till you decide, we're not doing anything. It's only when my mom got a little worried and she said, you know what if something happens and we have to rush you to the hospital? Because they said that, look, if you come to the hospital, we'll start doing everything to help you to get back alive. I mean, that's our protocol procedure. We can't let you die in hospital, so you don't come to the hospital. So I started becoming a little nervous about, shit, what does that mean if I have to die? And we called, I just Googled, palliative care doctors. I just Googled that and a number came up and I called him. I said, can you come over? And he came over and I just happened to have opened the door and mom and dad were sitting there. And so he said, who's the patient? And I'm like, I am. I said, but you just opened the door for me. I said, yeah. He said, what's your problem? I said, I've got a dilated cardiomyopathy. He said, but there's heart transplant. Just do the operation, get listed. And I said, yeah, I want to die. So what can you do for me? So he was like, don't die. Just because you're going to have to take a lot of medicines after you go through the operation, fine. At least you get another 15 years, maybe. Who knows? You're young still. You go ahead. I was 46 when I was talking to him at the time. Now I'm 47. And I don't know what he said. You don't have to worry about palliative care for you. The heart is the main organ. Once the heart is gone, that's it. Game over. 1 minute, 2 minutes max. That's it. You're gone. There's nothing that can be done for you. There's no palliative care for heart patients. So you don't have to worry about suffering. You'll die very quickly. So I think he put things in perspective for me. And I was like, I needed that jolt a bit. And then I just called the doctor. I said, okay, put me back on the list. And then I think in about a month or 45 days, I got a call to go ahead with the transplant. And I went, and it's been the best decision ever. And I'm so happy I took that decision. And I'm alive, and I want to tell people about this thing called transplants. You can live, and therefore we should donate, and all of that stuff. I don't know if I drifted off from your question. Did you want to bring me back on track? And maybe there was something you asked me, but I forgot to answer. Is
The
there
same
something
thing
you
I
wanted
asked
to
you,
ask me?
that how did you feel before the transplant and how do you feel now?
So I was fatigued, super fatigued before the heart transplant, and couldn't do much, always out of breath. And after the transplant, I'm fabulous, and I'm so happy. I'm 10 years, I was just fatigued, quite out of breath most of the couldn't do stuff. Now I can do so much more. I've got so much more energy because the heart is an amazing organ, it pumps blood and makes all the other organs work fine. So I'm very happy. People just this morning, some people asked me like, did you go through any pain? I said no, because you get all the medication you need for all the pain to go. You're just stuck for a bit for a month or two. I recovered very, very quickly. They said about 3 to 4 weeks you'll have to stay in the hospital. They said you're recovering so fast you can go back in a week's time. So I was very, very fortunate, blessed. I obviously received a fabulous heart. And I think the gentleman who gave his heart gave all his organs. So he saved many other lives apart from mine. So it's just amazing. And I want to tell people about how good this is. And I'm feeling great. I'm very happy that I went for the heart transplant.
Amazing.
I can understand why people might have second thoughts and stuff, but I also spoke to another person. The doctor gave me one guy's number and I heard his story. Not that it was positive, but when he spoke to me, I just felt better. So I think it's important that we who have gone through this become available. I told the doctor, anybody who wants to talk to me, I'm more than available to chat or listen or whatever, So let me stop rambling now.
No, but Rishi, I have to say, the reason that you also probably recovered at a very fast rate is because of your positivity, the humor that you carry, which is commendable. So I want to go to Lalita now. She's ready with her internet because I want to ask, normally, what are the kind of organs that one can donate? So we know about heart and kidney because they are the commonest that we hear about. What other organs can one
So the
donate?
organs, yeah. Hema, there are more than 50 organs that can be donated. There are several tissues that can be donated. But let me talk to you about the tissues and organs that are donatable in our country so that it becomes easy for our viewers to understand.
Yes.
So kidneys are the commonest, liver, heart, lungs. These are being done routinely in our country. Okay, apart from these, intestines can be donated, pancreas can be donated, small bowel transplants also happen, but not in our country yet. The tissues that can be donated are corneas, that is our eyes. Our heart valves can be donated. Now we have done several heart valve donation. There are two conditions where you can donate organs after you are gone. One is when somebody is brain dead, that is, the person's brain is completely dead. They are in the ICU, declared brain dead by 4 doctors, and they will be on ventilator. You should not disconnect the ventilator. They should still be on ventilator. And at that time, if the family consents to donate, it is called donation after brain death, DBD. So all the solid organs, like I said, the heart, the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, the pancreas, all of this can be donated after brain death. Let's talk about circulatory death or cardiac death. So what is circulatory death or cardiac death? The one that all of us know. When our heart stops beating or our pulse stops, that's cardiac death. At that time, all the tissues can be donated, like the corneas, the heart valves, our bones, our tendons, our ligaments, our skin. All of this can be donated. Routinely, we are able to donate our heart valves and eyes. And in places where the skin bank is available, for example, in Mumbai, Navi Mumbai has a National Burn Center, a skin bank. So you can donate skin there. In Chennai, there is a skin bank, the skin can be donated. In some places, bones can be donated. Jaya has facilitated bone donation. From Sassoon Hospital in Pune, they've been able to get bones from a donor and they were able to get it to Mumbai. So bone donation is possible. So these tissues are possible. And apart from this, I also want to take this opportunity to tell you about body donation. There are a lot of people who come to our office or write to us or, they make phone calls saying that they want to donate their body also. So what is this body donation? Body donation is to a medical college. It's not to save somebody. It is for medical students to practice and for research purposes. Medical students need bodies to practice. So you donate your entire body for medical students' practice and research purposes. So this is also something that we facilitate: eye donation, organ donation, and body donation. So commonly people ask me, after the organs are donated, can we donate that body? It's not possible because the body doesn't have the organs. In the case of cardiac death, lot of them say, yes, we would like to donate body. So we call the medical college and facilitate the entire process so the body can be donated.
Okay. Is there an age limit? Is there an age range for donation?
Yes, yes. So for kidneys, you can go up to 70, 75 also. Liver also up to 65, 70. And heart up to 55, 60 maximum. But the most important thing that I'd like to tell you here is, whatever be the age, the health of the organ is very important. If somebody has suffered diabetes and hypertension and, their organs have gone through a lot of insult, they cannot be organ donors. But at the same time, if they've been organ donor, they have been diabetic, but only marginal diabetic, and their organs are in good condition, they can still be organ donors. So what we do is, when there is a brain death in a hospital, we counsel the family and take their consent. We motivate them. Just imagine, it's such a challenging job. Somebody is dying and you're asking for organs there. The organ donation is not in their horizon, but they listen to us, and our consent rate has been between 65 to 70%. In some cases, in some cities, we've had a consent rate of 80% also. 8 out of 9, 10, yes to organ donation. We facilitate the entire process. The organs are retrieved and we inform the state body that takes care of distribution. So the heart will go to somebody, the liver will go to somebody, the kidneys will be used in the same hospital, or one kidney will go for distribution. So all of this is facilitated by our transplant coordinators. And every organ has a shelf life also. It's not as if, it can be stored for months together. Corneas, the eyes, when they are retrieved, can be stored up to a maximum of 3 days, 72 hours. Kidneys can be stored up to a maximum. Heart is the least, between 3 to 6 hours. As soon as possible, the heart has to be used. That is why when we get a heart donation, we organize something called Green Corridor. Suppose from Navi Mumbai, a heart has to go to Mulund. The distance is pretty long. In the traffic, if the organ has to travel by ambulance also, it will take a very long time. So with the help of traffic police, we organize a green corridor where all the signals are made green so that the ambulance is able to pass through, and the regular traffic are, sent to the side of the road so that the ambulance gets precedence over other vehicles. So heart can be transplanted, within 3 to maximum 6 hours. And lungs also about the same time. So everything has to be done as quickly as possible. That is why when a donation happens, on one hand, we work with the donor family. We work to ensure that the organs are all retrieved. At the same time, we will have to alert the patients who are on the recipient list. Like, when Rishi was on the waiting list, he would have been alerted and he would have been asked to come immediately to the hospital and get admitted. So they will have to get admitted. They will work on the patient on one side, on the donor on the other side. Literally, when there is an organ donation happening, about 100 to 150 people work behind the scenes for, to be able to save 7 to 8 lives. But it's an extremely gratifying experience. On one hand, you're dealing with the patient's family, the donor family who are grieving the loss of their loved one. But on the other, you have patients, like Rishi, patients, who are waiting with bated breath for an organ. So you're able to give them a new lease of life. And you not only make the patient happy, you're not only giving that patient a quality life, you're making the entire family happy. So it's an extremely gratifying experience. Somebody who's a breadwinner, would have been able to go back to work after the transplant. Their children will be able to go back to school. The status of the entire family is elevated. So that's what you do when you donate organs.
Wow, it's giving me goosebumps right now. So I have a question from audience. Ashwini asks, who cannot donate? Is there like a criteria where someone cannot donate?
Yeah. So there are certain conditions. Yes. Somebody has a malignant cancer, and there are certain contraindications at the time of death. If somebody has had a septicemia, they died of sepsis, such people cannot donate organs. Commonly, people ask, I'm a diabetic, I'm a hypertensive, can I donate organs? I would say yes. But at the time of death, first once we take the consent, we also look at the quality of the organ. We do a liver function test, a kidney function test. We ensure that the heart is in good condition. Once we assess that the entire organs are in good condition, only then we will go ahead and retrieve the organs. Otherwise, we don't even retrieve the organs. So these are some of the contraindications. People having hepatitis B also can donate because those organs can be given to hepatitis B recipients. People with HIV also can donate, can be given to a HIV recipient. So all this, over the years, the science has evolved. So we are able to give these organs to more number of people who have similar conditions.
So I think the best thing for people is not to assume themselves that, they have been ruled out. They should reach out to their transplant doctor or to a foundation to recheck if there is a possibility for them to go ahead and donate. That's a
So Dr.
great
Hema,
idea.
this is what we tell people. This is what we tell people, that if it is your wish to donate, please go ahead and commit to the wish. What can or cannot be retrieved, we will leave it to the doctors to assess when the time comes.
So there is a question for Rishi specifically in the audience, and Darpana is asking that, Rishi, after operation, do you face any health issues?
No, for me, I was very fortunate. Mine was a super ride. It was like, I'm just totally blessed. I'm telling you, they told me 3 to 4 weeks I'll have to be in the hospital. And then they said, Rishi, we don't know what you're doing, meditation, yoga, jo bhi tu kar raha, to karte jao, because tumhara to bahut acha chal raha hai. It's going fantastic. You can go in a week's time. We literally had to tell the hospital to keep us for 3 more days because abhi tak wo painting nahi hua hai. They said sterilize the room, all that. They said, no, you can stay as long as you want. We just saying you are ready to go. After all, everything was fine. Really, I'm I'm choking right now because it was a fabulous, second life for me, which I'm
Like
so
Hema
happy
said, I
about.
think your positivity is also so important. It's infectious here, Rishi.
Very contagious.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely. So,
Yeah.
Lalita, I want to touch base on one thing also because it was very interesting that when I circulated the promotion for this particular event, a lot of my friends got back to me asking that, after death organ donation किया तो soul को मुक्ति नहीं मिलती है. So I want to understand what is your perspective on the religious aspects, the karma, the soul reincarnation aspects. Do people come to you with, and what's your answer, Norman?
So in the early years, a lot of them were asking these questions, does my religion agree to organ donation? Or is it that, if I donate organs in this birth, will I be born without organs in the next
I think I'm
birth,
losing you.
etc.,
Your voice is cracking once again.
But I should.
Yeah, I think
Now?
maybe
Is it better?
Yes.
maybe with the video off, maybe.
Yeah, Lalita, you can switch off the video, I think.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So a lot of them, I'm actually using my husband's phone, so you'll see his picture there.
Yeah, so that's the disclaimer. The photo is not of Lalita Raghuram.
So a lot of them did ask about these religious beliefs and misconceptions during the early years. But I have to tell you that we don't have such questions being asked at this point of time. Also, I want to share with you that we have had discussions with several religious leaders. We also had a conference of all religious leaders, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, all Christians, all religious leaders. In fact, from the Dalai Lama sect also we had, Buddhists we had. Everyone unanimously endorsed organ donation, and everyone said there is nothing against organ donation in the religion. So I would only say one thing. I have donated my own son's organs. I lost him 19, when he was just 19. And even now, if he was alive, he would be 35. Even now, we live with that gratification that he continues to live on in 5 people. So I think donation is beyond religion, beyond caste, creed, color, race, etc. Like Rishi said, he's a Gujarati, he's a Malayali, he's a Bengali. Yeah. So, this is true national integration. What else can you ask for? And also think this way. If somebody in your own family needs an organ, what would you do? Would you think about, is my religion going to agree to, transplant? No. You want your loved one to live. At that time, we don't talk about religion or misconceptions. So think that way that, I actually, when I'm making a presentation, I always say, it may sound very crude, but think you may need an organ, your loved one may need an organ, somebody in your own family needs an organ. At that time, what would you do? You would go helter-skelter. Let's all be part of this movement. And what are you losing in this? Not a single rupee. By saying that yes, yes. that yes, can change life of so many people forever without losing a single rupee. I think this is the best form of donation that anyone can ever dream of. I think all of us have to just do it. I also say, when I'm dead and gone, I'm not Lalita Raghuram. I'm not Mrs. Lalita Raghuram. I'm only a dead body. When are you going to cremate? Is what people will ask. What time is the cremation? What time is the funeral? Are they going to say, when are you going to cremate Mrs. Lalita Raghuram? No. When are you going to cremate the body? The entire nomenclature changes. So let's think hard on these things. Let's understand the reality. And you don't lose anything. When you donate money when you are alive, maybe, you know, your financial reserves may come down. But after you're gone, what are you losing? Nothing at all. So that one, yes, think about it with a large heart and just say, yes, I would like to be an organ donor. And don't just leave it at that. Discuss your wish with your family, because it's the family. Tomorrow I am brain dead, I am on ventilator. It's my husband or my daughter who's going to call organ donation organization. So they have to be equally motivated, if not more motivated, to donate organs. So it's a family tradition, it's a family issue. That's why everyone has to think about it unanimously as a good cause.
So
If
thank
I
you
may just
so much.
add to what Lalita has said,
Yes.
you know, this reminds me of, you know, we had a campaign called Life Before Ashes, wherein we had featured, you know, exhibits in the shape of human organs, which were made from real human ashes and mud from the graves. Okay. So the
Wow.
message was that, uh, would you rather burn them or bury them and let them become ashes or food for worms? Or whereas these organs had the, you know, power of giving life to so many people, so why would you just reduce them to ashes, or, you know, make them food for worms? Give life. So that was the message that we had come up with. So yeah, I just
Well
wanted
said.
to add
Wow.
that bit.
Well said. In fact, I have a lot of people from the audience also asking that, Lalita, why do people fear away from donating organs? What are the kind of myths, you know, that people usually have, which, you know, are actually
It's
myths?
just that they don't know about organ donation. We are a giving society. Indians, people do give, and we are definitely philanthropic. I'd like to say that if they are convinced, yeah, properly, if they know that we are doing good work, if they trust the work that we are doing, if they know that the organs are going to the right deserving patients, if they know that there is no commercial dealing, that the organs are not being sold or bought for a price, you know, if everything is ethical, if everything is absolutely transparent, they are more than willing to give. Hema, I have myself counseled more than 400 families for organ donation. I can tell you that people are looking at how ethical you are more
Absolutely.
than
I think
anything.
I have
Yes,
one statement, in fact, on the chat, which says that,
yes.
you know, that is somewhere that person lacks trust. You know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what you say is
if
right.
they if they trust the system, that is why we work on, you know, having a transparent system. We have a registry, a web-based registry in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Rajasthan, in Telangana, in Maharashtra. All these places we have a web-based organ sharing registry. So whoever is on the top of the waiting list, whoever is a matching, you know, a good match with a matching blood group, such people only receive the organs. It doesn't go to the rich and the famous. It doesn't go to people who are willing to pay more or anything. So everything is very transparent. And fortunately for us, the government of India and the state governments have contributed to ethical and transparent distribution. So that's why we have come this far. So I don't think anyone should ever worry about any unethical practices in deceased organ donation.
There is one more question. Someone says, you know, does the body get mutilated if all the organs are donated?
Yeah, okay. So this is a question quite often
Yeah.
asked. So when we retrieve the organ, we open up from the throat until the navel. It's like an open heart surgery. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we open up the body from the throat until the navel. First, the heart is retrieved. Then the liver, lungs are, if the lungs are donated, lungs are also retrieved. Then the liver, finally the kidneys. So we close the body with neatly, the sutures and put a tape on the top. There's a slight dent in the chest of the body, but there is absolutely no mutilation because you cover the body with cloth. And then the eye bank comes and they retrieve the corneas, they close the eyes. So there is absolutely no change in the way the body appears. So there is no question of mutilation at all here. So it is absolutely normal. People ask, open coffin burial kar sakte hain, you viewing kar sakte hain. Can the body be bathed? Absolutely no problem at all. Everything can be done like any other normal body.
So that is great to hear, because that is, I think, one of the
Yeah.
commonest
Yes.
questions
Yes.
that normally.
Yeah, we don't want the body to look mutilated at the end of it. Yes. So we hand over the body with respect. In fact, when the body is handed over, several families across the country, the staff members of the hospital stand in the corridor and pay respect to the body and hand over the body to the families. So everything is treated with absolute care and respect. So nobody needs to worry about how the bodies are treated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great information. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that. So I
Yeah.
have a question for Rishi and Jaya from the audience. How soon, did you start your normal physical activities? And probably it's a very generic question also. It says like, can you start running, cycling, etc. And how soon can that be done?
Well, as a kidney recipient, the third month after my transplant, I immediately joined work. Of course, you need to wear a mask because as a recipient, in the initial couple of months after the surgery, we're very immunosuppressed, as in we have to take medicines which suppresses our immunity. Um, However, by the third month, the doctors ensure that you're rehabilitated back to a normal life. So by third month, I joined work full-fledged. I used to carry tiffin to work and work whole day. In fact, I was much more ill before the transplant, and after the transplant, the kidneys were functioning so beautifully. The transplanted kidney was functioning so beautifully that I couldn't wait to, just like what Rishi was saying, I couldn't wait to get out of the hospital. I was in fact very restless, and I was after the doctors ki discharge kabhi milega. We also have people who've been running full marathons after a kidney transplant. So I don't think anything holds you back. It's all your mind and the positivity. And people who've had second chances, I think they value it. At least I hope. At least I value it a lot, and make it worth it. So that is very important.
And Rishi, how soon did you get back?
Yeah, totally. I completely resonate with what Jay is saying. So they make you walk right away. They start the moment the surgery is done. I think the next day I had to get off the bed and start. And then when I get back into the other room, they start making you take walking a little bit. And then so they say, you start with 5 minutes and 6 minutes and 7 minutes every day. So for me, I had to walk right after, and I was able to walk right after. So by the time I touched 40 minutes is a few months. So this is once you hit 40, 45 minutes, you keep going 45 minutes walk every day. So, I mean, we are back in action. But as Jaya says, we have to put these masks and all because we are on these immunosuppressants. So you don't want to get any infection because our immune system is suppressed. So that's about all. Fortunately, I've been very blessed to have set up my work from home way back in 2013. As a digital marketing consultant, I didn't need to travel. I would only travel because customers insisted. Thanks to COVID, now it becomes normal not to come to you. But I was work from home right from before, so I got on to work right away. I mean, within the second or third, fourth week, I was like getting on my mails, talking to customers, doing Zoom calls. I was doing Zoom way before, before this COVID lockdown stuff.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
nice to
yeah.
hear that. So Lalita, tell me one thing, because you counsel so many families and you've done that in the past. What is the role of family in one's organ donation? Like if I have to pledge my organ, what is the role of my family around me? Because I heard you also say that the family has to be alive. Even if I write in my will saying that I want to donate my organs and my family says no, then you can't really donate. So I wanted to talk a little more about it because I know a lot of people who want to pledge are watching, and a lot of families will also watch this.
Lalita, your mic is muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Oh, unless she's not there. Maybe Jaya wants
Yeah,
to take that.
Yeah, Jaya, you
all
want
right.
to take
Yeah,
it?
sure. So, like Lalita mentioned earlier, it's very, very important that our family, because a family must be aligned with this wish. Because when I am alive, I can decide for myself. But when I'm no more, the body becomes a property of the next of kin or my family, right? So they need to essentially decide. So even though I have maybe quietly written down in some will somewhere and I haven't discussed it with my family members and they are not aware of this, they might just refuse at the time when the doctors ask them or the transplant coordinators ask them. So therefore it is very important. In fact, the donor card or the pledge card essentially is not a legal document. It is a symbolic way of expressing your wish to align your family in on this decision of yours. It is an icebreaker. So once you take the pledge, you're supposed to show the donor card to your loved ones, tell them, hey, I have taken this pledge because this is my wish. When I'm no more, this is how my organs, my body should be treated. Just like, Rishi has told his brother and his family. So it's very important to initiate this discussion at home. It is ultimately your family's decision. If they choose not to donate, even though you wanted to donate, it is, they will prevail. So make sure that you have this discussion at home. It's a beautiful thought. So please go ahead. Do not hesitate. Yes, people do find it a bit morbid when you're discussing with your loved ones and they say, no, please don't bring up such morbid discussions. I don't want to talk about this and at this point in time. But it's all about the mindset, because all of us have life insurance. What is life insurance about?
Yeah.
It is essentially about securing your family when you're no more.
Right.
Okay, so if that is a comfortable enough decision that you have taken and you're informing your loved ones, there is no harm in saying that I want to secure a few more people. And it's the supremest form of love and charity, where you're, giving life to absolute strangers and you're talking about this wish with your loved ones. So please go ahead and do it.
Yes,
So
Rishi.
I have a question. Yeah. Thank you. I wanted to ask Jay one more question because I'm still learning about this, and whoever wants to give a stab at this. So let's say in the case of my brother, it was very clinical, and I said, "Bro, you're going to do this, right?" He said, yeah, absolutely, no issues at all. Because I mean, he's seen the benefit, right? Because I am receiving the organ, so therefore, it's a non-issue for him to feel the same way. But let's say with my wife and kids, if they flip last minute, right? Uh, is there a way to address this legally? Since you said the donor card is just symbolic and all
Yeah.
of that stuff.
And that was
Now
my
I want
question.
to take it to, yeah, okay, good. So we're on the
Yeah.
same page. So great. Jaya, please, or Lalita, whoever wants to give a stab at this one. We want to know, we want to do as much as we can while we are alive and have this conversation so I can take, maybe go to a lawyer and say, hey, my family should not come in the way, no matter what emotional state they might be in, right? So So please, Jack, can you tell us what legal action you can take?
Rishi, legally in our country, yeah, Rishi, legally in our country, am I heard? Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're
Am I
Now we can
audible,
hear you.
Rishi?
Now we can hear
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yes, yes.
legally in our country, it's the family's consent that is paramount. So it's the body. So in your case, your brother, more than your brother, it's your wife that has to be motivated. Always the spouse's signature is very, very important. According to law, I may have pledged my organs, but if my family says no, it becomes a no. So please remember that. That is why I keep insisting on family playing a vital role. I may not have pledged organs, I may not have discussed anything, but ultimately the family is the one that has to say yes to donations. So that's why please go ahead and motivate your family and make organ donation a family tradition. And that's why we have a family donor card, Rishi, so that everyone in the family pledges to donate organs, so that everyone knows about it, not just you doing in isolation or writing about it in the will. Everyone does it, so it becomes easy for everyone to be able to make that decision at that difficult time.
Right.
So Lalita,
Okay.
since the viewership here it goes up to US as well, sometimes in other
Yeah.
countries. I
Yeah.
just want to make it clear that this is the law in India, but in other countries
Yes.
the laws may be different,
Yes.
right? And
The
people want
other
to check out.
countries, the law may be different. Like I'll tell you, in the US, also, they have an organ donor registry. So somebody is brain dead, let's say Andrew is brain dead in Boston in a hospital.
Okay.
So the first thing that the organ donation organization, they are called OPOs, they're organ procurement organization. So the OPOs first check for Andrew's name on the organ donor registry. So if Andrew has already pledged to donate organs, it becomes easy for them to talk to the family. So they will say, look, Andrew has already pledged to donate organs. Can you give your consent? So it's all done telephonically there. Nobody does, they don't, hardly they do face-to-face counseling. So they just talk on phone, and the family says, yes, please go ahead. So they retrieve the organs. So we don't have such a system here. We don't have a national organ donor registry yet. NOTO, the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization in Delhi, is trying to put up a national registry, but they don't have a registry, full-fledged registry yet, where, any hospital will be able to retrieve that information. But as of now, pledge is something that all of us can do. And like I said, even if I have pledged my organs, finally, it is my husband, my daughter that has to make the decision and give a consent. They will have to sign on the dotted line in the consent form.
So can someone sign a pre-consent form and keep? As in, when you're alive, you ask your family to sign the consent form.
No. Just to add to what Lalita mentioned, so the countries like US, UK, they all have these driving licenses as well,
No. This consent form is according to law. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just saying
Yes, yeah.
that.
I'm able to
yeah,
hear you.
Yeah. In the countries like other countries,
Yes,
like
yeah.
the US, UK, they all have this, when person signs up for or applies for a driving license, they are asked whether they would like to pledge their organs and they would like to be organ donors. And if they opt for it, then it's mentioned on the driving license itself that yes, this is their wish. And that also becomes so much more easier because it gets into their system, and therefore if the person were to meet with a mishap, it becomes so much more easier to know that this was the person's wish, and therefore the initiating the conversation with the family becomes easier. So in India as well, we have this, the government has in 2018 introduced, thanks to a lot of advocacy from Mohan Foundation as well as a few other NGOs. They have adopted this, but implementation has been a little bit slow. But I think it's happening. So it has been made a compulsory procedure in the driving licenses in India as well.
That's good to hear because I didn't know about it. So I have Haresh Hegde say that he believes in some countries brain that people, their body becomes a property of the state. Is that
Yeah.
true?
There is a system called presumed consent law. So in the states, in the countries like Spain or Croatia, or now even UK, France, there is a presumed consent system, as in when somebody passes away, it is presumed that by default they are organ donors. Okay. Therefore, the waiting list is not huge. The minute somebody passes away, it becomes, again, the family's consent is sought after, but it's in their system. It's a default system, because probably they introduced it because they felt that doing good should come by default. Okay, so probably that's why they introduced that system. But over here in India and certain other countries, it's the contrary, wherein it's an opt-in system, wherein one necessarily needs to sign a form and say, I am opting in to donate the organs of my loved ones. So that's how it is.
So let me come to the question: how do we do it? How do you pledge your organ?
Okay, Lalita.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go?
I'm sorry, I came in just now.
So my question was that how do you pledge your organs? So this is for all the people who are listening to our talk.
So we have our website www.mohanfoundation.org. So go to our website. On the top right hand corner, there is an icon called donor card. So you can simply click on the donor card, give your personal particulars, the details there.
Okay.
Oh, she dropped
I
off,
think
is it?
we lost
Okay.
you, Lalita.
Okay, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, you can go to our website, mohanfoundation.org. On the right-hand side top corner, you will see a box called donor card. You have to click on that button. It's a simple 2 to 3 minute procedure where a simple online form pops up. You just have to fill it, mention your personal details, mention which are the organs and tissues that you wish to donate, and share the details of an emergency contact. So basically, somebody else whom you would like to be contacted if something were to happen to you. And it's important that you inform this emergency contact about your wish as well. And then you just click the submit button. The minute you click a submit button, an email is sent out automatically to your email ID, which encloses the PDF version of the donor card that you've just filled up. Also, an intimation goes to the person that you've registered as an emergency contact, saying that so-and-so has wished to donate their organs and they've listed you as an emergency contact. So this sort of completes the loop, even if you haven't had the conversation, we are making sure that this information goes out to the person that you've listed as an emergency contact. So that is one way of doing it. And there's another way of doing it. We also have a toll-free helpline number. So if there's any question that you would like to ask, people wish to know more, they can also reach out on this National Organ Donation Helpline, which is a 24/7 helpline, and it's available. It's flashed on our website as well. And it's available in 8 languages. So do feel free to reach out. Yeah.
So I have put the address of the website on the chat for people who want to go and do it. Also, a quick question there. I want to make sure, because I'm sure a lot of people will think that is this confidential or is this going to be published somewhere?
Yeah, okay. So this is absolutely confidential. So when one fills up the form itself, all of this information comes at the bottom that this is completely confidential and it is only shared with the National Organ Tissue Transplant Organization, that is NATO, which Lalita just briefly mentioned a few minutes back. This NATO is a government body. It's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It's a body nominated by, affiliated to them. And they have been given the responsibility of populating the National Registry of Donors, or rather people who have taken the pledge. So NGOs as well as other bodies who collect such pledges, it is our responsibility to pass on these pledges to them, and that is what we do. So we mentioned there as well that this information will be passed on to NATO, who has a responsibility to collect it, and to nobody else. So it's absolutely private and confidential.
There is one more thing I want to confirm. If somebody has not pledged their organs, can the family still decide that they want to donate organs after the person is brain dead?
Absolutely, yes. Because ultimately, like I told you, it's a family wish. So I would have never even thought about it my entire life. But when I am no more and I'm brain dead, if my family is told about it, they go ahead and donate the organs. That's very much possible.
Okay. There is another question which has come up twice in the chat. This is more to do with, of course, it's relevant to Rishi since he's also a recipient and has pledged his organs as well. Can you donate the organs that you have received from someone else? Can you donate your heart again? Like, I'm talking in terms of Rishi. Is that a possibility?
So you're asking me if it's technically medically possible to do it?
No, I'm asking, I don't know, Lalita or Jaya
Yeah.
or you, if you all know about it.
I'm waiting for.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So when Rishi wants to donate his organs, the body is already, the organ is already immunocompromised. So maybe he will not be able to donate his heart, but maybe his kidneys and liver, other organs may be in good condition and will be used for transplant. So again, like I said in the beginning, depending upon the condition of his organs at that time, so we will check if the organs are in good condition, those organs can be used for transplant. They are donatable. So yes, it is possible to donate, but we will look at the condition of the organs, the quality of the organs at that time.
Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
I know, there is lots to talk about this because probably this is one subject which is not in a regular conversation with a lot of people. So if you all have further questions for people who are watching us live right now and who will watch us in future, please do reach out to Mohan Foundation website, and a link is put in the chat for you. You can also Google it. They have a toll-free number which is 24/7. Feel free to reach out and ask them any questions you may want. Please be clear, the objective of this talk is not to give any medical advice out here. However, it is to stir up the conversation about organ donation and to also motivate people and tell them the importance of organ donation therein. I want all three of you to give me a last message for all those audiences who are sitting on the fence, who are thinking, should we not, and those who are not thinking about it. So, what's your last message? Anybody can start.
In my email, my signature is always, don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows they are needed here on earth. So please donate organs. So this is the message that I always give. And please remember, there are a lot of people who are in need of those organs. You will have double the blessings of those patients who receive the organs. And you will straight go to heaven So please remember that you are, like I said earlier, you're not spending a single paisa while donating organs. So it's the most noblest of things that everyone should think, and you will be very happy that you did it.
Thank you, Lalita. Jaya?
Yeah. So, as a person who has received the organ and living a second chance, as well as a person who is now also enabling it by working with Mohan Foundation, all I will say is, for you never know, it could be one of us who has to receive an organ, or one of our loved ones. And at that point in time, we'll be praying to God that some stranger must donate. Okay. But everyone must remember that if you can receive, so can you give. That's all.
Wow. Well said. I got goosebumps, yeah, hearing that. Yeah, Rishi.
So, I mean, I think they said far better than I can even think of saying anything. But I mean, you said if there are people who are sitting on the fence, I mean, I know it's something that they may not want to do, and that's their choice, of course. But do give it a thought. I mean, you're still alive, you're not dead. Think about it while you can, and if you choose to do that, please do so. I mean, I'm very happy to be alive thanks to somebody who decided to give their organ to me. So think about it. It's don't just like, it was an interesting webinar and be done with it. Please go to the website, ask questions, learn more about it, and give it a good thought before you just brush it aside. Is what I would request you to do. That's my last comments.
So, Rishi, well said. A lot of times, once the talk is over, people want to go back and do nothing about it. You know, and one of the purposes of our talks is to take action. Now, when I'm saying action, I'm not telling you go pleasure organs, right? I'm just telling you go back, sleep over this thought, think about it, ask questions around it, weigh the pros and cons, and see then what happens with you, what you feel like doing. So very pertinent. Like I read, and this is a very interesting statement I read, where they said, "Don't think of organ donations as giving up a part of yourself to keep a total stranger alive. It is really a total stranger giving up almost all of themselves to keep a part of you alive. So life will go on. In fact, this is the chance for each one of us to let our organs live longer than we do. So thank you so much. I seriously and from the bottom of my heart salute the heroes in all three of you, Jaya, Rishi, and Lalita. I totally appreciate you all for being the person you are and contributing so much to the society, to people, and to everyone around you. Thank you for agreeing, to come to this platform. It's been an honor for me, really. Though, Lalita has been off and on, like ghosting the session, but I think her contribution has been immense. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Hema, for having us here. I think Lalita is again not there. So, on behalf of Lalita as well, on behalf of Moon Foundation as well, thank you so much. We just want that more and more people should be benefited. So, thank you so much.
So I come back to the title of this talk. So for all our audiences who are watching us live right now, and for people who will watch us later, probably in the next 1 week, they will watch the repost on different social media platforms. Are you willing to give this gift of life? You know, I want you to think about this and sleep with that thought. Do come back to us if you have questions. You have the details in the chat available. If you can't reach out to Mohan Foundation, they are pretty famous on internet. Please reach out to me. I will give you all contact details of Jaya and Lalita. Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Hema Bajaj, and you're watching Lose Your Blues. I will see you next week, same place, 8 p.m. India time. Thank you so much, guys.